ॐ पृथिवी शान्तिरन्तरिक्षगं शान्तिर्द्यौ शान्तिर्दिशः शान्तिरवान्तर दिशा शान्तिरग्निः शान्तिर्वायुः शान्तिरादित्यः शान्तिः चन्द्रमा शान्तिर्नक्षत्राणि शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिर्वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्गौ शान्तिरजा शान्तिरश्वः शान्तिः पुरुषः शान्तिर्ब्रह्म शान्तिर्ब्राह्मणः शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः शान्तिर्मे अस्तु शान्तिः. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu, sarvas sarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our own hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravir Maheti Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Te Namam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the divine consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. So we begin today on verse number 250. So we saw last week the very important section of this book, which deals with literal meaning and implied meaning. And the idea is that when a literal meaning does not make sense, either the person who is using that kind of a statement is just nuts. I mean, sometimes people say things which don't make sense. But when we know that the source of that statement is someone that is trustworthy, someone who speaks what is sensible, then even if the sentence does not make sense immediately, we try to look at it more deeply and see whether there is an implied meaning involved in there. So this statement, Tattvamasi, you are that, on the face of it is ridiculous. That is to say, to put in simple language, you are God. Most people would be horrified with a statement like that. Now what the section that we saw, the portion that we saw last week was, if we take that statement to heart, considering that it is in the Upanishads, a part of the Vedas, and therefore maybe it's conveying a deeper truth that is not immediately clear to me. And so that's where we see what the implications are. And we saw 3 different kinds of implied meanings called lakshana, and we saw which one needs to be applied here. And the simple fact is this, that when the teacher says tat tvamasi, you are that, what we are looking into is, who is this you? What is this that? And see whether the two can be identical. And what the conclusion that was arrived at was that if we can eliminate all the non-essential parts of you and the non-essential parts of that, then we'll see that the two are same. Actually, we can look at our own life in one way. It's quite possible that many of us, let's say we were born in we were born in some place, but I'm assuming that maybe nobody sitting right here in front now, or probably not born in Boston, but now we are residents of this big city. So who was that little baby which was born some years ago in some different place? The appearance of that baby was very different. That baby is like when we were babies. So think about your own childhood. You were born in a certain place. You looked very different then from how you look now. And some of your habits you had as a little child are very different from maybe some of the new habits that you have acquired now. Now, look at yourself now. Now you're in a different place. You look very different from that baby, and so on. And yet, you are the same person. Now, we might say, how come? The place is different, the appearance is different, and blah, blah, blah. This is different, and yet the person is one and the same. And then we can say, well, which place I am is not an essential part of my being. I'm in Boston now, tomorrow I could be in Bombay, but I'm still the same person. Or my appearance can change. With age we change. We look different when we are little babies, we look different when we are adults. There are many factors, many things about us which change, and yet we remain the same person. So how do we arrive that that baby who was born some years ago in a different place and me now is the same person? By knowing that whatever differences we see in that baby and in me are not the essential part of my existence. So if we eliminate all those non-essential parts of that baby and me, then I say it's the one and the same. That's more or less how it is. Tat tvamasi, tat and tvam are these apparently two entities, but if you remove these unessential parts of them, then what remains is Brahman. What remains is pure consciousness. And you are that pure consciousness. That's the idea. Look at verse 250. Asthulamiti etad asannirasya siddham swato vyomavat apratarkyam ato mrishamatramidam pratitam jahihi yat swatmataya grihitam brahmahamityeva vishuddha buddhya vidhi swamatmanam akhanda bodham. In the light of passages such as it is not tangible, eliminate the unreal through purified understanding and know your own self to be Brahman, the self-evident, absolute awareness who, like space, is beyond dispute. Hence, renounce your current identity, which is only an appearance that you have embraced as your own self. So there is a reference to the passage from the Brihadaranyaka. It starts with like this, asthulam, etc. And the idea is, eliminate the unreal through the purified understanding. So several things here. What is understanding and what is purified understanding? Normally, the word simply understanding should have been enough. But what we can say is that right now we have some intellect, every one of us, some buddhi. We are able to understand things. But do we understand everything perfectly now? We might say, well, maybe not. There are some things we understand, some things are not very clear, and maybe a few things we totally misunderstand. And the reason for that is our understanding itself has not become purified yet. So one of the first benefits of practicing any of the yogas, that is Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, the first benefit and the most important in some ways is purification. Because unless the understanding gets purified, we will not understand things exactly as they are. It's like when we are driving, even if the windshield is not very clear, we can still drive. I mean, it's not like you cannot. But seeing things may be difficult. And maybe if there's not enough light, if it's become very foggy, if it's raining, then sometimes accidents do occur if we don't clean that windshield well. And that's why you have these windshield wipers, and we do make sure that we have a clear vision in front of us. And of course, if you have cataract, then your vision also can get clouded. Now, in this journey of life, we need a clear vision, not just the vision of the eyes, but the vision of the mind. So, what removes the cataract of the mind? Well, I'm having a cataract, so all examples of cataract are coming to my mind right now. So, what do we do with the cataract of the mind? The way to clean the windshield of the mind. One way is clearly, traditionally was the repetition of the practice of prayer, the prayer. And the best prayer for this, taught from Vedic times, is the Gayatri prayer, which ends with Dhiyo Yonav Prachodayat. That Dhi stands for purified understanding. Buddhi, clearly, these are not like any technical terms. It depends on how these words are used in different books. But the word buddhi is used so often, we could sometimes just call it just our regular intellect that an average person has. But when will this intellect get purified, refined, so that it can see things more clearly, can understand things more clearly, is when it becomes a dhi. Or sometimes it is also called by the word medha. These are different words used in texts. So clearly, Gayatri is one very traditional way. Now again, it's not like just repeating the word Gayatri mechanically is somehow going to do some magic about it. Repeating the word Gayatri includes all the preparations that need to be done in order to repeat that prayer well, which includes living according to dharma, living a life of truthfulness, honesty, living a moral, ethical life. Because if somebody just doesn't have any self-discipline and says, well, all that I need to do is just repeat the Gayatri and boom, I got a clear understanding, it doesn't work that way. And so the best probably way is to follow these 4 primary disciplines that we saw in the beginning of this book, called Sadhana Chatushtaya. So Viveka, Vairagya, Samadhi, Shat Sampatti, Mumukshutva. These 4 basic disciplines for Vedanta are important to have a refined understanding. So those 4 disciplines never really end until we realize God, until we become enlightened. The more steadfastly we keep on practicing Viveka. Well, this is the central idea in this book. Vivekachudamani, therefore. Discernment, detachment, then these ethical qualities needed, and then, of course, that intense longing for God, intense longing for moksha, intense longing for liberation. So those are the ones which will create this purified understanding. And through that, you eliminate the unreal. Now, the word eliminate is a kind of very generic term. Sometimes, if mafia language, eliminate that person could mean completely different. Now, you just can't take a gun and boom, 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 remove this. It doesn't go that clearly. So how do we eliminate that which is unreal? Eliminating a real thing, you will need to engage in some activity. That's why there is one ancient Sanskrit verse which says, if you see a real snake, how do you eliminate a real snake? Well, you've got to do something. Get a stick or a gun or something and then kill it if you really want to eliminate it. But how do you eliminate a snake seen on a rope? In a rope snake, no gun is useless. A stick is useless. There is no activity needed there at all. All that I need to do is switch on the light. Now again, clearly, you might say, well, going on switch on the light is some activity. But here is really the light of knowledge. In other words, all that I need to do is to look at the snake and then remind myself, look clearly, with purified understanding, with clear sight, and say, oh no, that snake is not real. There is really no snake. It's only a rope. That's how we eliminate the unreal. That's essentially what the Vedanta practice is. So we look at ourselves as we are now. We see ourselves as human beings, as body, mind, all of these things. And we don't have to do it. We don't have to do anything really. All that we need to just look. And just as we say, look and say, this snake is not real. It's really the rope. You look at your body and say, this body is not there. It's really Brahman. This mind is not there. This really is Brahman. So that's the hymn, very famous hymn, which we sing very often at the Vedanta Society, that the Nirvana Shatkam. Mano buddhya hankara chittani naham. I'm not the mind, I'm not this, I'm not that. What we are doing through that process is we are really eliminating what appears to be real to an unrefined understanding. But to a refined understanding, you see it, but you're not deceived by it. It's not that the body and mind are going to vanish or disappear. You will see it, but you won't be deceived by it. It's a little bit like when you're first walking in a desert, and then you see beautiful streams of water, a river ahead. And then for some time you might truly believe that's the source of water. And then you go further, and then you find that water that you see is receding farther and farther away. And then you realize it's only a mirage. There is really no water there. It's just sand. So once that knowledge comes, and then next time you look and you will see water, and you will not be fooled then. You will see water. But you know, oh, that's only a mirage. So eliminating the body and mind doesn't mean killing oneself, because that's not eliminating it. It means the body and mind will remain. We will continue to see it, but it will no longer be real. It's like the difference between, let's say you go to watch a movie, which is the new one now, Wakanda Forever, let's say. If you go to watch a movie like that, and then just before you enter the movie theater, before seeing it, you know it's the very real world. You buy a very real ticket. You go and you sit in a very real chair, and you start watching the movie. And you enjoy the movie. And if you haven't gotten so sucked into the story, and if you have a nice big popcorn in your hand as you're munching it and you're watching it, you can enjoy the movie while remembering it's only a movie. that it's not like real life. You're seeing it, but you know it's not real. And then you walk out of that, after the movie is over, you come out, and then you say, oh, now back to the real world. That's a problem. So just as I'm able to see the movie and enjoy the movie, while all the while knowing that it's not real, can I come out after the movie is over and look at this world and see the world, enjoy the world, but know that this is also another movie? If someone can truly live that way, every moment of their life, they are enlightened. But right now, we can understand a movie as a movie, but everything else appears very real. And so that's the challenge before us, that recognizing that the world is not real does not mean the world disappears. It will continue, just as a movie, but you will know that it is not real. So that's why the avatars, Ramakrishna, Buddha, Jesus, it's not like they didn't see the world. They're just saying everything is Brahman. When Sri Ramakrishna saw everything as a play of the Divine Mother, well, what did he actually see? Did he or did he not see the people sitting in front of him? Of course, he saw them. That's how he could talk with them. So he saw everything. The difference was, while we see everything as real, material, strong, material object, these enlightened ones see everything as just pure consciousness. That's the only difference. Everyone sees the same world. We see it as real. They see it through their purified understanding. They see it as this one infinite consciousness. So that is what is said here. Through that purified understanding, know your own self to be Brahman. Don't think of your own self as this mortal human being, that you are this infinite Brahman. The self-evident, which needs no external proof, absolute awareness, awareness itself, not dependent on any object, who, like space, is beyond dispute. About objects we can have dispute. This is bigger, that is smaller, this is more precious, that is not precious. What about just space? What dispute can there be? There is nothing to, just as people don't fight over space. Well, don't think about the space wars, etc. now. Similarly, there can be no dispute about this absolute awareness. Because disputes can come only when there are distinctions. Then we can say this is big, this is small, this is great, this is not great. When there are no distinctions, then there are nothing to argue about. Hence, renounce your current identity, the human identity, which is only an appearance that you have embraced as your own self. So, we should not think about ourselves as human beings trying to be Brahman, but we should look upon ourselves as Brahman who has forgotten that I am Brahman and is deluded into thinking that I am a human being. That's what kind of turned the whole perception topsy-turvy. Now we see in the next verse, the teacher will summarize the teaching. You have this conversation about Tattvamasi, the you are that, in the Chandogya Upanishad. The teaching is given by Uddalaka to Shvetaketu. That's the original context in the Upanishad. So teacher now summarizes that teaching here in verse 251. Mritkaryam sakalam ghatadi satatam mritmatra bhitaf tadvat sajjanitam sadatmakamidam sanmatra khilam yasman nasti satapparam kimapi tat satyam sa atma swayam tasmat tattvamasi prashantamamalam brahmadvayam yatparam. All clay products, such as the jar, are always and in every way merely clay. In the same way, all this universe, which is produced from the real Brahman, is itself real and is nothing but real. Hence, there is nothing beyond the real. It alone is real, and it is itself the Atman. Therefore, that unchanging, untainted, and transcendent Brahman is you. So the idea is pretty clear and very simple, and that is, just as in a clay object, in an object made of clay, no matter where you touch that object, it is still clay. Even if you destroy that object, it just still remains clay. So the only reality in a clay object is the clay. Exactly in the same way, the only reality in this entire universe, the only reality in me is simply Brahman. That is the truth. 252. Nidra kalpita desha kala vishayajñatradi sarvam yatha mithya tadvadihapi jagrati jagat swadhyana karyatvatah yasmadevamidam sharira karana pranahamadhyapyasat tasmat tattvamasi prashantamamalam brahmadvayam yatparam. Just as the place, time, content, and the observer imagined in sleep while dreaming are all unreal, so is it here, even in the waking world, since the world is the effect of the self's ignorance. The body, the senses, the prana, ego, etc. are also unreal. Therefore, that unchanging, untainted, and transcendent Brahman is you. So again, through various examples, the same truth is being reinforced so that we never forget it. So in a dream, the places that we see in the dream, the time in the dream, the content, the actual, whatever is happening in the dream, and the observer, me, the little, when we wake up the next morning and say, oh, in my last night in my dream, I went there, I did this, I did that. So whichever is that person I see in my dream, who I think is me, all of those things are unreal. The place, the time, the observer, the content, everything is unreal. But why does a dream occur? The dream occurs because of ignorance. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of my waking identity. So whatever identity I have now, that identity is forgotten in sleep. But that's what sleep is. When I say that, I don't get sleep at night, what it means is, I'm lying in my bed, I'm switching off the light, but thoughts and memories connected with this person are crowding in the mind so much that I'm not able to fall asleep. So my identity is uppermost in my mind, and therefore I don't sleep. But what is sleep? The moment I sleep, this identity is completely forgotten. Because the moment I sleep, I no longer know where I am, I no longer know who I am. Which is why, therefore, I'm able to believe in my dream, I find myself in the Bahamas. I don't that time say, oh, I could not be in Bahamas because I'm lying in my bed. Because the one who is lying in the bed has forgotten now that I'm lying in the bed. So, in order for the dream to become possible, I have to forget my waking identity. I have to become ignorant of my waking identity, and then I create this dream in which time, place, content, observer, everything is unreal. And what does waking up mean? When I wake up, my waking identity comes back again, and everything that I projected in my dream just disappears. It never was, just like the snake disappears. Now what this verse says is, when I wake up in the morning, just as the time, the place, the content, and the observer were all unreal, what about the time, the place, the content, and the observer now, when we are awake? Is this real? And the answer is no, because this is also a product of ignorance, because I have forgotten my Atman identity. So just as forgetting my waking identity produces the unreal dream, forgetting my Atman identity has created this dream of the world. And just as that dream I saw at night, everything was unreal, this dream produced by the ignorance of my Atman, I have forgotten that I am Atman, just like at night I forgot who my waking person is. Everything we see now is also unreal. Where Maya plays a role is in somehow giving us that knowledge that dream is unreal, but then telling us, but this is different. This is real. That's where Maya comes in. And if you're able to overcome Maya, then we can say, well, that is a dream. This is also a dream, a different dream. And that's what knowledge is. That every change that we notice in our lives is a different kind of dream. One kind of dream at night, a different kind of dream when we wake up. And when we die, that will be another kind of dream. A dream, and if it's a pleasant dream, we'll say, I'm in heaven. If it's a nightmare, then I say, I'm in hell. And then maybe another dream starts, and I thought, oh, now I'm reborn. I had a rebirth. So we are continually passing from one dream to another dream, unending. Millions and billions and trillions of dreams. And we have been sleeping. There is the character of Kumbhakarna in the Ramayana. He's a brother of Ravana, and he's kind of well known for long sleeps. Until someone shakes and wakes him up with great difficulty, he'll just sleep. At least he could, I don't remember the exact how long he slept, but I think I remember reading long. Some people said he slept for like 6 months or 6 years, God knows, a huge number. But even Kumbhakarna woke up now and then. We have not. We have been asleep for trillions and gazillion lives, going through these one dream after another. Now, when will this end? Will it end? And the answer is no. It will not end on its own. By default, it will not end. There is no such, it can keep on going. And just because we don't remember one dream from the next dream, we don't even know whether they are different dreams. For all we know, it could be just like a Groundhog's Day. But we have forgotten what we saw, and so it's like everything is new, but it's not. We don't know. The only way the dreams will end is when we wake up. And waking up means being the Buddha. Buddha, the word Buddha, means the one who is awake. We all will wake up one day, but not by default. It's not like, oh, let me just, our irregular sleep, even if you don't put any alarm, even if it's like a long weekend and you don't have to go anywhere, still, there is a limit to how much we can sleep. At some point, we are going to wake up. But this sleep has been so terrific. We are not waking up at all. And what the Upanishads and all these avatars and all the saints are doing is like shaking us. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Like, no, I'm just dreaming deep sleep. That's the problem. So what the book is trying to do, every Wednesday evening at 7:30, it's going to shake us a little bit. And hope one day we will say, okay, I'm enough sleep now. I want to wake up. So that's the idea here. Because in reality, I'm that unchanging, untainted, and transcendent Brahman. That is who I am. So when the teacher says, you are that, Tattvamasi, the student who is ready will say, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. So you can see, the discussion is not so much about the world at all. The teacher is not really saying what the world is. The teacher is saying, you are Brahman. And the student is not asking, if I'm Brahman, what this world is. The world doesn't come into the calculation at all. The problem is of my identity, my real identity. And the teacher says, you are that infinite one. And the student, when the student is ready, at once realizes, Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. I am the infinite one. Verse 253. Yatra bhrantya kalpitam tadviveke tattan matram naiva tasmat vibhinnam swapne nashte swapna vishvam vichitram swasmat bhinnam kinnu drishtam prabodhe. That which is superimposed through ignorance is found through discernment to be the substratum itself, not different from it. When the dream is over upon waking, is the diverse dream world viewed as independent of oneself? The idea is, just as the dream world does not exist independently of the dreamer. I can't say, oh, I have woken up in the morning, my dream is still continuing there for some other people. No. If I've woken up, everything, even the people I met in my dream were not real. They are just projections of my mind. So I can't say that I have woken up, and that's, we won't discuss it now, but that's the kind of a question that we find sometimes coming up in our discussion, that when a person becomes enlightened, will they come again and teach us? And it's a valid question. But if you keep this in the mind, that person who has woken up, we were just objects in that person's dream. We were not real in that person's view. But that person is really an object in our dream. So, again, I don't want to complicate it more than it already is. But the idea is, nobody else's waking up is going to help us. We have to wake up ourselves. It's like I meet these other people in my dream, and then somebody in my dream has gone to sleep and then woken up. My dream doesn't end because it's my dream. I'm the one who is asleep. It's not that person's dream. So keep that at the back of the mind. So the idea here is that the dream world does not exist independently of the dreamer, just as the snake does not exist independently of the rope. And the idea is existing independently simply means this. In the rope snake analogy, you cannot separate out, oh, this is the rope, this is the snake. You can't show them differently because they are one and the same. They are not too different. In fact, they are not they. It's just the rope. So in reality, although this doesn't sound right, but reality, you could say the snake is the rope. In other words, what feels like the snake to me is really nothing but the rope. Exactly in the same way, the dream observer and everything that is seen in the dream is really not independent of the dreamer. The only reality in the dream is the person who is asleep and dreaming. That's the only reality. Everything else is imagined. Everything else is unreal. Everything else is superimposed. So verses 254 to 63 are the 10 verses which provide a very brilliant meditation on Brahman. But before we go there, and I'm not sure whether we'll have time to do that, I think it probably might be good if we can keep it for our next class. So we will stop here today, because beginning from the next verse, it's a very inspiring meditation on Brahman, and I think we would like to take it up in the next class so that we can study it together. So if you have any thoughts, ideas, comments, questions now, feel free to ask.
Hari Om Swamiji. Swamiji, is there any Vedantic iconography that helps us remember this Tattvamasi, or that this is not real?
What do you mean? Iconography in what sense?
Images.
Well, there are meditations given. In fact, the next 10 verses will give us that some way of remembering who we are. And so there are these, there is, for instance, one set of verses called the Pratasmarana Stotra. One of the stotras actually we have up on our website in the prayer section. So these compositions which remind us of what our true nature is. So there are two ways of doing it. One is reminding ourselves who we are. That's one kind of verses. The second set is reminding ourselves who we are not. So the Nirvana Shatakam is of the other side. It's like, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. So what is the I'm not, I'm not, I'm not? But it also has at the end of every verse, I'm this Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. I'm infinite consciousness. I'm Shiva. And there are other set of verses which remind us of our true nature. So sometimes people find it beneficial to recite these verses which remind us of our real identity. And some people just find different ways of creating these reminders. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be only very philosophical, non-dualistic reminders. Even for bhaktas, for devotees, the hymns and prayers which remind us of our chosen deity. If suppose a worshipper of Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Buddha, Jesus, there are prayers, or there are ways of thinking about these divine beings. So even if someone says, I'm a child of God, I'm a child of the Divine Mother, that is a higher identity than our present identity. And that identity will eventually take me to a truer identity. So my identity as a child of God is closer to my real identity than my present identity as a human being. And that's why Sri Ramakrishna called it the ripe I and the unripe I. So can I ripen my identity by connecting myself with the spiritual ideal, either in the non-dualistic way or even in a theistic way, God as Father, Mother, or in the form of our own Ishta. So developing a relationship with God in whichever way comes naturally to us is a way of going closer to who we really are. Yeah. Yeah.
Swamiji, you mentioned we need to purify our mind. Our mind is product of Maya. Who is going to purify who? Nothing is real. Even purification is also product of Maya.
Correct. Good question. So yes, the one who is purifying and that which is being purified are both not ultimately real. But still, purification is important. It's a little bit like if I want to drink water in my dream, I can't say, oh, it's only a dream, just any water would do. Because in my dream thirst, I want good water, good quality water. So I will, in my dream also, go and get pure water, purify that water. Although ultimately it doesn't matter because everything is unreal anyway. But for my dream thirst, a pure dream water is helpful. So similarly, in our present condition, the mind will need purification to see things clearly. But ultimately, what the mind is seeing, through the mind we are seeing names and forms. We are not seeing Brahman through the mind. We are seeing names and forms. So the names and forms and the mind and the senses through which we are seeing them, they are all unreal. And yet, we need a clear mind to see things clearly. In order to even drive well, we need a clearer windshield, although everything is unreal in the end. So that doesn't matter if it is not real, because that which is real is really one. And once we are in that reality, nothing needs to be done. All doing occurs only in unreal things. In the real, it's only being. So that's how we last time spoke about being and doing. So doing has a value insofar as it can take me nearer to my being. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So Swamiji, when you see read the scriptures with names like Parshuram or Ravan, and they have attained that Brahman, obviously vision, or the tapas that they did and get the. What makes that moment when they become fallible in terms of being vulnerable to the real world or the world? Because
no, once anyone has attained that truth, they are free. The dream is over. They are woken up. So nothing happens.
But then they make mistakes of having, with like Ravana fought with Rama.
No, Ravana was not enlightened.
Oh, he wasn't enlightened. But you
I
said that he
don't
did a
think
lot
so.
of penance, or
He did. I mean, did. So he did penance and he attained some powers, but no, I don't think
no.
he's enlightened.
Okay,
No.
so it's not a personality you could think of.
No, in fact, what they say sometimes is after Rama killed Ravan, then Ravana became enlightened.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the idea. So
Thank
not
you.
before. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. In fact, there is an incident. I think it comes in the Gospel of Ramakrishna that Ravan used to go every day to where Sita was kept in that Ashokvana, where we had kidnapped her and kept her there, to try to persuade her to become his queen. And he tried various ways of doing it, through persuasion, through force, through threatening, everything he tried. And Ravana had all these powers. So someone said to him that you can take any form you like. You have that power. Why don't you take the form of Rama and go to her? And she loves Rama. And that might be an easier way to persuade her. And then Ravan is reportedly said, because in order to take any form, you have to meditate on that form. And so Ravan said, if I meditate on the form of Rama, then I don't want anything. I don't want anything. So that's why he doesn't want to take the form of Rama, because he wants Sita. You see? So there is that aspect to it as well. Yes, you had a question.
So Swamiji, if one studies a lot and tries to make some progress in terms of getting closer to enlightenment, but you only make very small progress in this lifetime, then is it better to occupy oneself with doing good works and so on, so that
Sure.
in a future life you actually have a better chance at...
Sure, yeah. If that good work, if it's done in the spirit of Karma Yoga, please go on. The good work, if it is done in the spirit of Karma Yoga, it will purify the heart. And the more the heart is purified, then our understanding will be refined, and then we will go even closer to our experience of enlightenment. But doing good work should be done with the spirit of Karma Yoga, because it's possible to do a lot of good work and get even more immersed in samsara. Because there are all these, there is the ego there. Because people doing good work can have, if they are not careful, if they are not alert, have very subtle desires. A desire for recognition, a desire that, oh, people should think I'm good, an expectation of some kind of a reward. Or some people might say, if I am good, then I will go to heaven, I'll go to Brahmalok or something. So as long as these desires are there, the good work done will produce some good result. But it will not take me closer to enlightenment if the good work is fueled by some desires. So good work, if I can do it with complete detachment, with simply the idea I'm doing this good with no expectation of any kind, then that good work will help. Yes. Any other thought? Okay, so we will stop here today, and when we meet next time, we will begin with verse number 254. Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. So on next Sunday, we will have the satsang. The subject will be all about karma. On Saturday, we'll have meditation as usual. So next Wednesday, we'll have Thanksgiving on Thursday. So I'm sure all of you have a lot of cooking to do, or maybe travel or meet with your friends and family. So we will skip next Wednesday's class and meet on a Wednesday after that. So enjoy your Thanksgiving, remembering everything is unreal, but that doesn't prevent you from enjoying a nice Thanksgiving meal. In fact, if you remember that it's unreal, you will enjoy it more. Sometimes a lot of people fight during Thanksgiving dinner, so the whole family comes together and there's a lot of arguments. But if you remember it's unreal, you'll be able to enjoy everyone else arguing. And you can enjoy your meal that time. It has practical benefits, all this thinking, you see. Yeah. Okay, so I'll conclude with a prayer now. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.